Welcome to Daily Football Show Sunday, brought to you by electricitywizard.com.au, Australia's #1 rated gas and electricity comparison site. Mark Van Aken with you, Matt Windley from the Herald Sun, Adrian Beaker-Horton over here on my right, your left. Where are you from, mate? Outside dining? Daily Football Show? Deniliquin. Wowee. A big show, of course. The Socceroos in action tonight over there in Tehran. We're going to cover that off. We're going to talk about Brisbane-Melbourne victory. A few problems for the victory, you reckon, with the international window again.
Just a few, yeah.
Throwing up some issues across the league. We've got, of course, the number one thing we want to change in the off-season.
We only get one.
You only get one. You only get one. And we will cover off this NPL. We've got to stop calling it a revolt, because it's not really a revolt, but what's going on in NPL clubland. Anyway, to the top. The Socceroos in action tonight in Tehran. Any journos actually over there? We know Vince Rigari's over there. We're going to chat to him.
Yeah, Tom Smithies from the Daily Telegraph, our News Limited family, will be. So News look Corp, in the Herald News Corp. Sorry, So take a look in the Herald Sun for all Tom's fantastic accounts of the game and whatnot. Normally we go, just for anyone that's interested.
How does it work, mate? Do you draw straws?
A little bit, but then because the follow-up game's in Sydney, and obviously Tom's from Sydney, it makes sense for him to then follow the team back. So if this game next week was in Melbourne, most likely it'll be Dave Davidovic who would go.
Wouldn't be you, Matty.
Unfortunately, I'm still a little bit down the pecking order, but one day I'll get there.
One day. Hey, massive game. The last time we played there was 20 years ago. This fella right here, Harry Kuehl, scored the goal. There's 128,000 people. There's probably not going to be 128,000 people.
There might be 128.
128 in total. But very important nonetheless.
Massive.
Not a lot of mail coming out. I guess there's not a lot of hype around it. Have I missed the hype, or it's so important?
It is so important. I think it's just that sort of thing of, it's such a hard time of year. There is so much going on at the moment. We have the start of the AFL season, NRL season in Sydney, Super Rugby going on, F1 Grand Prix. The cricket has been probably the best test series that we've had in about 10 years. So there is a hell of a lot going on. I expect it to be louder, the noise about next week, because realistically, in essence, I've had it put to me that the Iraq game isn't that important in terms of because Iraq's out of it. Now, I disagree. I disagree. But obviously the fact that we're in a four-way battle, one of the teams being UAE, it's really important to make sure we get the 3 points next week. But clearly this is a game that you wouldn't want to be dropping any further behind the pace.
What do you make of it, Beaker? What's going to happen, buddy?
Well, the mail I've heard, and this is bombshell, boys. I'm going to go straight to it. Is that Robbie Cruz is in line to potentially make a start? Now, this is the whipping boy. This is the whipping boy of Australian football. Matthew Leckie probably closely followed behind, considering his prodigious talent. But if Robbie Cruz gets a gig over a James Troisi, for example, that is a shocking move from Edge.
Different positions though, in the sense I don't necessarily like James Troisi out wide. Bring it back a week. I was surprised that Craig Goodwin missed out. Because I thought that for everything that I was hearing, he was potentially close to the starting lineup in people's sort of own machinations. And then given that he's playing regularly in Holland and all that sort of stuff, so then for him to fall out altogether was surprising. Clearly, in Ange's ideal starting lineup, with everyone up and about, Leckie and Cruz still feature prominently, and he's backing their individual talents in.
So we're in a situation where Tommy Urich is likely to lead the
has to,
of course. So then, if Robbie Cruz starts out wide, then Matthew Leckie naturally will start out wide as well.
Yeah.
So there's no place for James Troisi.
Yeah, no,
I'm not going to play him in midfield.
No, I would have thought that if you go slightly more defensive away from home. He'd potentially feature in a more of a roving sort of box to box, or if they play sort of like 2 10s, if you want to call them that, in the home game alongside Moisey. But I would have thought they'd probably be a little bit more defensively minded in midfield for the away game. Therefore, that would count Troisi out, because you're not going to not play Moy.
Well, one thing though, James Troisi coming off the bench as an impact player, 55th, 60th minute, if we're chasing the game, even if it's level, that is a great option to have up your sleeve. So maybe that's what Ange is going for. And the other thing, you brought it up, maybe he just wants to make sure he's wrapped him up, he's in cotton wool, he can have a real go at that second leg. You talk about the lack of importance that some people have said about this game, the Iraq game, but the game against the UAE at home is an absolute banker for the 3 points. If we get a draw and 3 points, so maybe James Troisi will be the weapon in Sydney.
Don't get me wrong though, I love James Troisi, but he still hasn't been amazing over time in a Socceroos jersey. Yeah. He's been fantastic in the A-League, but he still hasn't proven, he obviously scored the winning goal in the Asian Cup
final.
And we all remember that and all that sort of stuff. And he's been fantastic in the A-League this season, but in Socceroos colours, he still hasn't got the job done consistently. So I think he still needs to prove himself on the international stage for Ant to then regularly select him in the starting 11 for mine.
And look, that's the point. It is essentially a two-legged series. You've got to remember that as well, even though it's not against the same teams.
Yeah.
There is another game coming up in Sydney that's worth 3 points as well. They're all worth 3 points last time I checked.
They're an unbelievable
They
team.
are.
Anyway.
Now, let's move on. Melbourne Victory take on Brisbane Roar this weekend. It is, of course, as we just discussed, international break. The usual bugbear in this competition is we have no FIFA breaks. We did have a split round. Not even sure why it was last week, considering it's
Asian Champions League, let's not go off on a tangent.
Okay. Melbourne, usually it's Wellington Phoenix that get reamed on this, but now Melbourne Victory are missing 4 players from the lineup.
Wellington are getting reamed too.
They're getting reamed, but no one cares anymore. They still in the league?
Yeah. Look, it obviously hurts Melbourne Victory most in the sense that it's not just 4 random players. It's their attacking quartet essentially, and then when compounded by the fact that obviously by their own doing, Oli Bozanic is out the door in the last couple of weeks, who would have obviously played the number 10 position this week. So Fade Ben Kalfala is definitely starting on one wing. Mitch Austin's definitely starting on another wing. You'd think that George Howard would be the guy that starts up front, but then you've got Pierce Waring playing in the, I think, 18-year-old, really like the cut of his jib, playing in the youth team.
I like that.
Thea Harris got upgraded to a senior contract, I think, a few weeks ago. So
these are all household names you're reeling off there.
Yes, absolutely. So look, these guys from the youth team, which is good to see. We like to see that the young kids come through. There's a school of thought, obviously, too, that potentially they could go back to just a flat 3 in the midfield, which would see Mahazi play alongside Valeri and Broxham, and then just have the front 3 of Ben Kalfala, Howard, and Austin do their thing. But yeah, rounding back to what you're talking about, the international breaks, like it's are we at that point where we need it, or it's just the same old debate?
I don't think we need it. I think we should enforce a break. For the A-League. I think we've spoken about that at will on the Daily Football Show.
So yeah,
so we do. No, I want to bring up a point about that game. Does it really matter?
No, well, that's the thing too.
And the good thing is, Kevin Muscat gets an opportunity.
Does it really matter?
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter. They're going to finish second.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Okay.
Can't Van Aken. But the other point is, Kevin Muscat gets an opportunity to put some youngsters in the side. He gets an opportunity to blood these kids, freshen it up in a proper game against a team who they have a lot of fiery encounters with.
Look, you're right from Melbourne Victory's perspective, it doesn't matter. But I suppose then if you look at the flip side, you've got Brisbane in a massive battle with Melbourne City and Perth to get the home final. So Perth and Melbourne City wouldn't be wrapped. That Brisbane's got a game against Melbourne Victory that nominally should be very hard, but Brisbane's got a much better chance of beating Melbourne Victory without those star players, which could obviously then impact the chase for 3rd and 4th. So
should they win?
Depends on
they
which
should
way.
win. When you think about it on paper,
they
considering how decimated Victory have been,
Brisbane should
win.
Yeah,
they should be favourites, clear favourites.
Does the week's events with the assistant coach play into any way, shape or form with the team? Does it affect them? Does it have any effect on this game at all?
I think it rouses them, Matty. I think it'll G them up because everyone's been going at Brisbane Roar all week, especially them. But it's true. I think it'll G them up for this game.
If I'm a player, I don't particularly care. I think you're very insular and you're just worrying about what your own thing going on, not necessarily what's going on off the pitch. That just is my take.
Now, Maddie, before we move on, I know you've got your sources at News Corp over there in Kosovo.
Yes.
And you have some mail on Besart Berisha.
I do.
Over there. You don't.
No, I've got nothing. But it'd be interesting to see if he does start. You'd think he'd be around about the mark, not quite understanding the depth of talent over in Kosovo.
One of our scarves is the Kosovo national. Actually, send it in if you got one.
That said, though, maybe if he was, in their 100% reckoning, would have they pushed all this stuff through quicker, and he would have been in one of the initial squads in Kosovo in the last, over the past 12 months or so. So yeah. Not quite sure. It'd be very interesting. And as we're talking about off air, fantastic scenes when he arrived in Kosovo last week. There's so much passion involved in that part of the world. Fantastic story for them to be finally recognised by FIFA as a nation and to have them playing in World Cup qualifiers. Clearly, they're not going to make the World Cup anytime soon. But for Berisha to finish off his international career by playing with nominally his home country, it's fantastic for him. So
the other thing, Van Aken, we've been pronouncing Besart Berisha wrongly. Yes. Remember when we played that on the show?
But I'm not even sure that's what... I don't know what they were bloody chanting. Anyway, it didn't sound like Besart Berisha to me. Anyway, to be fair, in Kosovo, it's probably not Besart Berisha.
No,
like,
it's
probably not. Yeah, probably not calling him that. Anyway, the NPL clubs, Matty, they met on Monday night for their little union, their association. They're trying to effect change in the FFA Congress. two sides to this story.
Yep.
Is this NPL stuff a storm in a teacup? I mean, there is 80 or 90 clubs across the country now signed up. It equates to roughly 3/4 of all the NPL clubs across the country. So it's not small.
Nope.
What came out of the meeting Monday and what progress are we seeing then from Whitlam Square, or are they just sort of putting the brick wall up?
No progress from Whitlam Square at this point in time. I mean,
Surprise, surprise.
look, I don't think it's a storm in the teacup because
the real newsman going, don't say that.
I don't think it's a storm in the teacup in the sense that, like, clearly the movement of, there's clearly a movement for change, and there's clearly a want and a need for change at that level. The funny thing is that all these clubs essentially have 90% of the Congress vote as it is. These guys are represented by their state federations, so that shows that system's broken, that they don't feel like... No, they're not represented at all in terms of their interests because they don't get a vote for who goes on their state federation boards and all that sort of stuff, so they don't feel they're getting a say. So they specifically, for the clubs themselves, want their own entity in the FFA Congress. I fear for them that their runs come too late for that. This is their main game at the moment, that they want representation on the FFA Congress. I don't know if it's going to happen considering this March 31 deadline is looming and they're late to the game. Obviously, the sexy point that everyone's talking about and wanting to know more about is the second division. And I agree with the most recent things that Tom Callister, the leader of this group, has been talking about in terms of hold your horses, let's not put the cart before the horse. We've only got one chance of getting this right. Anyone that wants to see it come in next season or even the season after needs to just have a little bit of patience. Like, this thing needs to have the proper foundations in place, the proper structures in place. As I've spoken to you guys about the podcast the last few weeks, I think my view has changed. I think philosophically now I do want to see a second division. I want to see promotion relegation sooner than what I thought I did.
Lynchy's been in your ear, Matty.
Yes, yeah. Logistics I'm still concerned about. It's easy to spend other people's money. It's not going to be
very good at.
Yeah.
Just ask ANZ Bank.
It's not going to be. It's going to be costly. You know, with this fast country that we have, and as much as we live in this soccer bubble or football bubble, whatever you call it, that everyone thinks that it's going to be the most well-supported thing in the country. It's still going to struggle for mainstream support. It's going to struggle for mainstream revenue. So we need to be very careful about how we put this thing together. And then promotion relegation will come down the track because all the A-League clubs at the moment have license agreements. I don't think they're going to be clamouring to be like, oh yeah, we'll put ourselves in the mix to be relegated to a second division that may not get much support commercially or you know, mainstream fan-wise. So there's a hell of a lot of things to tick off before we get to the second division. But I like the fact that it's at the very least prompted the discussion.
Can I raise something too that has gone off the agenda in the last couple of weeks? When we started talking about expanding this Congress, beach football, beach soccer was having a seat at the table. We had Dave Zulich upstairs in the studio on the podcast saying, Dave, congratulations as the only person really doing beach soccer in Australia. You're now on the board of FFA. We had a bit of a laugh about it, but it seems FIFA at least have dropped that requirement maybe.
Good idea.
It got
that was a bit of a joke.
It got held down very, very quickly. It wasn't even FIFA hailing it down like it was, or dropping a requirement. Like it was just.
They don't even have a formalised group. We were speaking to David and we were saying, "Are you the spokesperson for this? Are you going to be the one that's driving the ship?" And he goes, "There's no ship, mate."
It's the political game. It's the
beach.
It's the political game of FFA trying to keep their power in the Congress and not handing too much control to the clubs. So it's all just the whole, you know, back channels and everything like that about how they're going to come to these numbers in an expanded Congress, which has to happen, but there's no sort of set formula as to what the number's going to be when it comes to who votes for the board and all that.
I want to go back a step just to the NPL revolt. I'm going to call it revolt. Don't go against the whiteboard, Ben.
It's not a revolt.
Don't go against the whiteboard.
I can't even see the whiteboard.
It's important to say that it's not a revolt, though, in the sense that they're not going to try and form a breakaway league, which then would land us in all heap of trouble in terms of getting suspended from FIFA and all that sort of stuff.
I want to sensationalise it just for the sake of it. If there's some good to come out of this, please just lower the price of junior football. If that's the
how is this going to achieve that?
No, it might achieve this because they can create more revenues. They won't have to charge as much for these kids. It's something that Rabbi Crane spoke about at length on the show with us last week, saying that ultimately, if they can get this through, the number one thing that he wants to see is that the price of football for juniors is lowered.
It's a huge issue.
Yeah, huge issue. If that's the best thing to come out of it, I'm happy. Man.
It's on their agenda, but it's not.
That's a long-term thing.
Is it not a bit rich that this club that exclusively is representing NPL clubs is coming out talking about the cost of juniors.
Seeing as they're the ones that are charging.
They're the ones charging it. And look, I was pulled up on that by some people in grassroots football saying, well, hang on about it, can you understand how much it costs to have a technical director and all this sort of stuff?
And that's all
and
part
it does
of it.
cost money.
Registration
Correct.
and insurance and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the number one thing that I kept coming back to was why does it cost, kiddies out there to play AFL footy or rugby league or cricket so much less than it does to play football?
Because of head office, simple as that. We're going to wrap it up, but we're going to do this very, very quickly. One thing you can change in the off-season, one thing only, Matthew.
One.
And you have to make this under 30 seconds, otherwise Rob, our director, will get very upset.
Good luck.
Fine. Well, with the way that it is at the moment, clearly I want more teams, but it's not going to happen for next season. So one thing to change in the off season is the fixturing, because there's only so many ways that you can make a 10-team league with playing each other 3 times sing, but they're not being inventive enough. So to make the product that we have at the moment better, there are plenty more ways that they can be inventive with the fixture.
Beaker, yours, very quick.
Mine's the marquee rule. So we've got the Guest Marquee Fund. I want to know more around the criteria. I know Simon Hill spoke about it at length with us on the show. He's written many...
It's a 2-page criteria, we've seen it.
He's written many pieces on it. The criteria is there, but there is no clarity around the criteria. I don't want to see blokes who have a profile, who have played overseas in some of the biggest leagues in world football. I don't want to see them blocked anymore by the FFA. I want to welcome all of these talented players into the league. And I want them to loosen the shackles, so to speak, and make sure that we get some of these quality players in next season.
Very simple for me, South Melbourne in next season. Make it happen. Probably not going to happen. Hey, of course, thank electricitywizard.com.au, Australia's number one rated, Matthew, gas and electricity comparison site. Matthew Windley from the Herald Sun, Adrian Beaker-Horn, myself, Mark Van Aken. Enjoy the rest of your day.